Hello and welcome to the Courageous Nerd YouTube channel for another interview. I'm Connor and my guest today is actress Mallory Bechtel. We chat all about Mallory's new film No Fear, in which she plays the character of Jami. Alongside Mallory in this horror film is Amy Carlson, Jack DeFalco, David Allen Bash and Mia Davis. In addition to this, we also discuss Mallory's time in the Broadway musical Dear Evan Hansen, where she played Zoe Murphy. If you enjoy this interview or any of the others on the channel, please be sure to like and subscribe. Great. So welcome and thank you for taking the time to do this.
Thank you for having me.
Great. And so you've worked on a variety of projects in your career, and I was wondering, did anyone or anything in particular inspire you to pursue acting?
Yeah, well, I think what initially inspired me to do acting, I guess I have sort of a weird journey because I started out in musical theater. So it was more that I really liked singing as a kid, and my parents signed me up to do musical theater classes. And it wasn't until, and I was very convinced for pretty much probably until the age of 13, I would say, that I only wanted to do musical theater. And that the only reason I liked musical theater was because of the singing. I that was my favorite discipline. And I would say now I definitely still consider myself a singer first over the other two, just because I feel more confident about it because I've been doing it longer. But I don't, weirdly enough, I never felt good about acting in particular or very inspired about it and by it until I did perhaps now an inappropriate production of West Side Story, a little community kids production of it. And I was Maria, it's very cringy, but that now looking back, but at the time, that was the first kind of big acting challenge I had. And in terms of projects I've done where I felt excited about acting, I think that was the show that I was like, oh, this is cool too. And it's difficult. Like I realized I'd sort of been getting away with doing that very classic child, your typical child musical theater acting, which is just, talk loud and make big gestures. So that would be the answer of the first project that I felt inspired by.
Yeah, and obviously you mentioned your background in musical theatre, and I feel like the obvious place to go to with that would be Dear Evan Hansen, obviously. And I suppose, how did that kind of help shape who you are, going past that when you left as an actor?
Yeah, I came to do that because of I was the vacation understudy for the show when I was 17, and so I had seen the show and I loved it, and I auditioned for it. Like for the vacation understudy, definitely not thinking I would get it just because I was very young. And then from doing that, they offered me the part, and I did it for a year after I graduated high school. And in terms of shaping me, that show as an actor has been like, I can't imagine a better boot camp in just in learning how to give a consistent performance, because that show, and not even my part in particular, but I did have some kind of grueling scenes where it was expected that we get very emotional and cry at 8 times a week. And so that I think when I came out of the show, that was a challenge going in. And it's so ridiculous for me to say, because the title character has if I felt like I was being challenged, I can't imagine what it is like to play Evan, where there's this huge expectation from the audience that you're going to burst into tears. I just can't imagine that. And so I definitely felt like it's a bit inexpressible how or the specifics of, but I felt like I when I left that show, I was like, I slowly but surely learned how to whip this out, like just day in, day out, even though I know what's going to happen. And in terms of, I felt like coming out of it, I was like, if I'm able to reach that place in a show that I have to do all of the time, then I felt like it gave me better tools to, in terms of film, to be able to reach that place. Like it was just like practice for that. So it's a weird answer, but it's that definitely, it was nice to have my Broadway debut be such an acting challenge and not just a vocal challenge. And I feel like it's really helped me in my acting career going forward.
For sure. And something quite interesting that I've seen actors do, and you did it in that show, is you took on a part that someone else had already played. So I suppose, like, how did you approach doing that? Or like, would you be more kind of think about what the previous actor did, or just try and make the part your own? Like, what was your approach with it?
Yeah, it's a weird thing because I was originally the vacation understudy, and when you're training to be that, I never went I only understudied at 2 week intervals twice. And I was never needed to go on. But when you're doing that, they tell you, and I believe it's whoever is playing the part. If you're understudying them, they tell you to just do it exactly like they do. You're taught to kind of mirror their reactions identically, because if you get thrown in, the people on stage want to deal with what they're used to. To be thrown in any way. But then, so it was weird because I was very used to doing that. And then all of a sudden when they asked me to take over the role for myself, then it was like, do you could you do whatever you want. So it was kind of, I would say it was fun, and it was definitely something, you don't want to go so crazy that you're not staying true to the integrity of the character, but it was, I think it felt particularly liberating because I had done it where I've been told to do it, like Laura Dreyfus, who originated the role. So I personally, I loved getting to do that. And it was definitely something that I experimented with and was still kind of figuring out while the show was going on, like who I wanted my version of Zoe to be. And yeah, it is definitely a different thing having that template sort of already set, as opposed to stepping into a film and, like, no fear, no one had ever played Jami before.
Yeah, and actually that's a perfect segue to my next question. Obviously, you mentioned No Fear, and having had a chance to see the film, I know that Jami's quite an integral character to it. But what, I suppose, attracted you to that part when you first read the script?
Yeah, I thought she was a very neat and unique sort of teenage character. And definitely she's very passionate about ghost hunting, which I think that would probably be what I really liked about her. I liked that we had this sort of very typical that teenage girl trope of she feels insecure with her peers. She doesn't necessarily fit in. And so she has this YouTube channel, but it's with this very niche thing that you would not expect a teenage girl, especially one with her kind of demeanor, to be into.
Yeah.
And she's very passionate and she's very knowledgeable about it. And so I liked that. I liked that she was a smart character, and she's very convicted, and she knows what she knows, and she's not obstinate, but there are definitely opportunities. There's moments in the movies where she stands for what she believes in and what she knows, and she kind of trusts herself. She's a very strong character, so I really liked that about her, especially coming from a teenager.
Yeah, and I suppose just to provide a bit of context for anyone who might be listening or reading this, how would you describe or pitch No Fear to someone who might be unfamiliar with it?
Yeah, so without giving too much away, No Fear it kind of starts off as a very typical horror movie. You have a family who's moving into a new house, and we quickly discover that there is a demonic force present. But where the twist comes in with no fear is that the only way to conquer the demon is to perform this ritual that gives individuals certain senses. So one person is able to see the demon, another person's able to hear the demon, and another person can speak the demon's language. So we have to work together in order to conquer the demon and ultimately save ourselves with these special abilities.
Great. I mean, I've already seen it, but I'm sure for anyone who hasn't, that would sound like a great synopsis for sure. And obviously, you're talking about Jami a bit there. I suppose, are there more similarities or differences between the character and yourself in real life?
That's a great question. I would say, I mean, I feel very alike in to Jami in her demeanor, I feel like. And that was a part of the breakdown, is that she is really affectionate with her family. She's not like your kind of typical resentful outcast. She's, you know, she loves her family, and she wants to do everything she can to protect and save her family. So I do feel similar to her in that way. And to and just about her being passionate about something. I feel like that's always kind of been present in my life, at least, specifically with, you know, musical theaters, like, not to bring it back to that, but it was kind of my first love, and it was something I was doing since the age of 5. And so I definitely have that thing that I know everything about, and I just want to kind of share it with everyone I love. So we are very similar in those two ways, I think. In the specifics, like ghosts and being into that kind of creepy folklore, you know, no. I'm definitely I would not call myself a horror buff in any sense, but yeah, those two qualities I feel very similar to her.
Yeah, for sure. And another kind of interesting acting scenario I think you're kind of in with this film is you're acting opposite, like the other actors are playing characters that Jami knows very well and has an intimate relationship with. So I suppose, how differently would you approach that compared to if you've been playing strangers?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I think the whole movie would be different if I was trapped in a house with people I don't know. But I, you know, I love that it was a family, and I think it was very helpful that we were in very close quarters with each other, the cast and I. It was, and you know, we did a read through beforehand, so we all got to meet each other before, and it was very much the filming process with everyone was very much I have previously likened it to summer camp, which is like, it's a bit inaccurate, but the spirit of it is the same. It's like we all lived in New York at the time, so we would get picked up together, and we were just always together. And you know, we're sharing the same rooms to change and to hang out, because it was all just shot in this one house. So the cast, we all got very tight. We were very familiar with each other. And you know, that's always a tricky thing, because sometimes you grow to hate the people that you spend every waking moment with. But that was honest to God not the case with us. We still have a group chat, we all keep up. So that was and I think slash I hope that shows up in the movie, is that we perhaps took it upon ourselves to form these tight bonds, because we're playing a family on screen. And you know, I like that's the relationship between the people that are trapped in this house together.
Yeah, absolutely. And just kind of thinking, anyone who might be following your career might notice this isn't the first horror film you've been in. You were in Hereditary, and I suppose, like, what do you enjoy about working in this genre?
That's an interesting question, because it's purely coincidental that I am working in this genre. And and what's interesting about my participation in Hereditary is that I really wasn't there for much of the creepy stuff, but specifically the house stuff. But I think there is something very fun about the response to a horror film, like there's just always, even if it's uh, good or bad, there's something kind of not controversial, but there's like a intensity to a horror film. Like I like I like watching, getting to tell my friends that it's a horror film, because there's always, people are always going to have a reaction, you know, as opposed to if I was doing like a romantic comedy,
Yeah.
it's more of a tepid um, sort of response from friends and family. Whereas like I like that it just immediately elicits that kind of response. A horror film, like people are all have their wide range of opinions on horror films.
Mm.
And Hereditary and No Fear are certainly very different. And so I think it's got that just kind of extra level of excitement, no matter what it is, just by virtue of being horror. So that's been fun to see. It's been fun to see Hereditary with my loved ones, and to now see No Fear soon.
Yeah, and where can people see No Fear when it's out or when it's released?
It is now on Amazon Prime. Yep.
Great. And just to kind of change tack a bit, obviously we're a few months into 2021, but what do you hope to accomplish with the rest of the year?
That's a great question. I think I'm going to school now, which is something I've never done before. I didn't think I was going to go to school because I went straight to Dear Evan Hansen, and so really I'm kind of just it's, I don't want to call it lame. It's not lame. I want to focus on my education and prioritize that for once, because I have the opportunity to, since theater and film have slowed down significantly.
Yeah.
I want to sort of prioritize my education and work more in that field, and see what I can kind of get out of it while I have the opportunity.
Yeah, and I'll wrap this up by saying thanks again for taking the time to speak with me, and take care and stay safe.
Thank you so much. You too.